हाय, मैं हूं अपूर्व शेठ और मैं स्वागत करता हूं आपका द राइट चॉइसेस विद ओरेकल्स ऑफ दलाल स्ट्रीट के 89वें एपिसोड। अगर आप हमारा ये शो पहली बार देख रहे हो तो हमारी चैनल को जरूर सब्सक्राइब कीजिए ताकि आप एक बेहतर ट्रेडर और इन्वेस्टर बन सकें। पिछले एपिसोड में हम नूरेश मेरानी जी के साथ बात कर रहे थे और उनके साथ हमने इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग स्ट्रेटजी के बारे में डिस्कशन किया था। तो उस एपिसोड के डिस्कशन को हम आगे आज बढ़ाएंगे और देखेंगे कि कैसे आप इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग के डेटा को पब्लिकली जो अवेलेबल है उसे एक्सेस कर सकते हो और इन्वेस्टिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हो। तो चलिए आज का ये एपिसोड शुरू करते हैं।
Now, the tricky area, which is basically is preferential warrants, right? Rights and buybacks, because preferential warrants happen at a discount most of the times. And the problem is what we are seeing right now is in a lot of companies, promoters are giving up stake to individual investors. And there are a bunch of investors and institutions, right? Done at a discount. So at times, if the stock price is 100 and the investors can buy it at 80, it is diluting the shareholders' interest at a lower cost, right? And if the company does not need money, that is much more worse. So one has to be very careful in terms of preferential warrants. Rights issue. Now, there is absolutely no need to do a rights issue in the current world of QIPs. Like I said, it is easier to get money from investors today, right? And when it is done at a very huge discount to the market price, it is unfair to existing shareholders. The reason being, because a lot of shareholders could be old and may miss out on it. And that is where promoters can increase their stake in the company at a discount. We've seen this happen in a couple of companies recently. So although it is not great by the promoter side, it can create special situations. For example, a Suzlon rights issue, if you would have bought even the rights, Suzlon small quantity and a large part of rights issue, or even the rights entitlement, it gave you great return in less than a couple of months, right? So this is a tricky area. One has to be very careful. So we don't just look at inside preferential warrants, rights, buybacks in a big way. In buybacks, we try to look at companies where there is an open market buyback, right? Because in open market buyback, the promoter doesn't participate. In a tender buyback, the promoter can also participate. So open market buying is the simplest way, or say open market buyback where the promoter is not, or even in a tender offer where the promoter is not tendering, which is very, very rare. So the simplest and the best way to track increase in promoters holding is open market buying. So like I said, preferential warrants at times are not the best indications unless it is being done very close to the current market price or a little higher than the current market price. In this case, if you look at Sukhjit Starch, promoter buying here, first indication of a breakout, second clear indication out here at 300, 350, where it has crossed above the 2018 highs, a multi-year breakout. The stock went up from 350 to 600, right? So this was the point of time. So this is the trade which we looked at, got into it. So this is basically an example. So simply put, the steps are very simple. Insider trading se aapka universe hai of companies. Put them into a fundamental check in terms of is it a terrible company or not, and does it go through all your filters of delivery, buying, etc. Then in these companies, either you can buy it on fundamental reasons or on technical reasons. What we've decided is technicals will be the final frontier. Prices break out, you buy, right? So this is the process, simple process. Then use technicals to ride on to the move. You can exit on the way down or a relative opportunity, just like you decide in any portfolio stock. Now, this is a company called Polyplex. So the company came out with a buyback offer in April 2020, right? Very interesting times where there is a lot of confusion, world mein kya hoga, etc. And the company comes out with a open market buyback. The promoter cannot participate, but barely they could get much. They could not get the whole quantity which they wanted at those prices. So barely was a less than a 1% increase. And the stock prices were above the buyback price. So the open market buyback could not continue. The stock price was 475, then 500. The stock went up to 2,500 in the next 1.5 years. The company gave a lot of dividends, etc. Right? So now in this case, you got your opportunity here when it crossed above the 2018 highs. Then another big breakout here where you could have participated. So either you can participate here on the first initial breakout here or here. So this was a classical one because this happened right at the bottom of the markets. Now, another one way to look at it is family selling, but promoter management is holding or adding. Now, what is happening in a lot of Indian companies is, say the promoter has 3 sons, 2 daughters, or 2 sons, right? One of them is running the business, one of them is just a holding or a sleeping partner. Now, the non-operating partner of the promoter of the company is selling stake, right? The promoter is continuing to hold, the active promoter, plus he is adding more. Now, that is generally is happening in a lot of cases because inheritance has created a lot of different ownership. In cases, the son is selling, the daughter is selling, the brother-in-law is selling, son-in-law is selling. But the one who's running the show is not selling. So that is something which we don't look at it negatively, but look at it as an opportunity. That if this selling is over, it could create a good entry point because the buyer who's buying such a lot from the open market must have done his research, right? Because it's a good percentage of equity which is being bought, and it is being bought at a price which is driven by the market dynamics also. So generally we look at it as a good indication in terms of once the selling is over, we want to look at it कि जब ये price breakout. So you just don't want to, just because one of the non-active promoters is selling, you don't want to buy. You want to buy when the price breaks out. So now there were another case which we saw basically was the income tax department selling shares. So this was in a company called Mangalore Chemicals, which was originally owned by Vijay Mallya. The income tax department sold stake in the open markets, right? Now, income tax department is definitely not running the business of that company. So what we do is we look at these companies where the promoters are selling, the non-active ones. And when the selling is over, we want to start participating or when the prices are starting to break out. So look at this example. In between June 2019 to December 2021, the Sun has sold 14% of equity in the company, right? So that sort of volume got absorbed. And it was a period of 2 years. Then finally the stock breaks out. And over the next 1 year, it went up from 350, 400 to 700. Usha Martin, 2 brothers, one of the non-active promoters is selling in the open market. The stock makes a 9-year breakout at 45. The stock goes up to 160 over the next 1 year, right? Now, why is this interesting is that a lot of these companies continue to do well even when the market stopped out in September 21. Right, September, October 21, we saw the Nifty top out.
Topped out.
But a lot of these companies did really well. Another example, Mangalore Chemicals, huge volumes here. Out here, the Department of Revenue sold between December 2019 to December 20, they sold 16.75% stake. The promoters bought 3.4% stake from the open market. Once the selling was over, the stock went from 45 to 90 in quick time. And this could be purely the dynamics of the selling getting over. So this was the price, and you could actually see bulk deals happening, and you could see it in the disclosures. So every time the stock come to 44, 45, Department of Revenue would sell. Once the selling was over, the stock went up quickly to 90 levels. So what do you need to be alert of? That unofficial to official at times gets converted. There is a lot of market signaling, very, very small buying. So you want to look at companies where there is desperation in buying. What we look at is many a times this holding is used by promoters to, so there is generally an unknown, say unofficial holding which is assumed in our small caps, which is basically in good times the promoters sell and in the bad times buy it in their personal names, right? So it gets converted into official holdings at the bottom of the cycle, and it helps to give you a lot of good signaling also. So one has to be a little alert. And that is, if you can't be alert, what do? You have a stop loss in place at 10, 15, 20% lower. Sometimes if you make a mistake also. So some of the recent examples of the last year, which we've seen, there are many such companies we've seen where there has been promoter buying as such. just random names. So some of these names on the last year side, which gave us good return, was the top 3 names. Shri Pushkar did not do well. The other 3 are on our radar. But these 3 names gave us good returns. Now, out of these names, a couple of them are part of our portfolios. Say Welspun Enterprises today hit a new 52-week high. Mazda has been there. Chembond Chemicals is part of a new entry, etc. And out of these names, what we'll do is we'll keep looking out for breakouts. So example, Cabra Extrusion, promoters kept on increasing stake between September 19 to March 22 by 3%. The stock used to be 100, then 150, then 200, and then went up all the way to 500. And now today you see an announcement, Hero MotoCorp is doing an alliance with the company in terms of battery, etc. Orient Bell, another example, promoters bought 5% of equity in those 3 years, between June 19 to March 22. This is where the stock broke out in a big way, crosses 2018 highs, gives you a nice 50% pop. Deepak Fertilizers crosses 2018 highs. Promoters did multiple ways of increasing stake. So they did open market buying, they did rights, they did warrants, and various other things. Finally, the stock breaks out into a multi-year high, goes from 500 to 900. Thangamile Jewelry, another stock, promoter increased 3% equity. Now, the thing to notice here is, all this will keep on happening. When do you want to act? You want to act at the breakout points. So that gives you a good return in a short period of time. Now, where can you track it? It is available on a daily basis. So this is not some, say, data which is insider per se. It is a publicly available information. So it's not something where we get the data of what is happening. It is publicly available on a daily basis. So you could go to BSE India, Corporates Insider Trading. You'll every day see whichever companies are coming. The real part is availability is there. How do you put it into context? How do you run your filters? And you do it on a scale of the last months and quarters. It is not just because promoter has bought today, you go ahead and buy tomorrow. Right. So that is the context we do. The same thing can be looked at in various apps also. So now I'll conclude it. What we do: track insider trading activity on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Stocks which come in, go into your watch list of stocks, and you continue to see insider trading action. And then you look at what has happened in the past. Say today the promoters have bought. What have they done in the last 1 quarter, 5 quarters, 10 quarters, right? Once the watch list is made, you look at the price volume action, delivery volume data, and chart structure of the shortlisted stocks. Participate on the technical breakouts because it might be the start of a new journey, as seen in the examples above. And you can exit it on the technicals also. So what we do is we actually keep sending this updates on our Telegram channel. We also created a product around it so that we also do it on a regular basis. And what were our learnings from it? So we do it religiously on a month-on-month basis. Then we come out with interesting stocks, interesting chart setups, and interesting observations out of this whole series. And the reason we started a product around it is so that we do it on a religious basis, because this is just one part of the things which get into the portfolio. We do not run a 100% portfolio or insider trading. But to replicate this, we started running a small case, right? So this is a example of how we look at. So this is where the first part comes, where you look at quarters and quarters of the data, which gets into the Excel sheet. The list of companies come up here. The next we look at charts which are breaking out. Then we keep looking at them closely, what is happening in these companies, just to see what is. So we run this Excel sheets and Google Docs to keep tracking ke kahan pe kuch changes ho raha hai. Now to replicate the same thing, we said, let us create a portfolio around it. So we created it on a small case, which is called the top 10 insider small case, which basically is an equal weighted portfolio. And only top 10 stocks equally weighted. Now we started this in August 21, and you can see the change, right? So the Nifty is down in this period by say roughly 4%, the Nifty small cap. The portfolio is up 41%. Now that is a huge alpha in terms of returns. And I expect over a long period of time, there should be some alpha in a big way, meaningfully in this portfolio. So the viewers, there are two things which you can do. One is take this insider trading data and use it to research companies which are interesting. The second thing is take the companies which are interesting, buy them on technical breakouts. So we do a mix of both, but more focused on the technical breakouts in these companies.
Sure, absolutely. So it was a very insightful session. Now I have a couple of questions. So first one is, like you've said that you look at the insider trading announcements which BSE has on its page. So are there any other tools which our retail investor can use to track them on a daily or regular basis?
See, this comes out, you can look at the BSE insider trading data. You can pull out the whole data into an Excel for the last 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, which BSE allows. The other way is you look at various apps today, whether it is StockEdge or Screener.in or AllRatestar, various things. At least in your companies which you're tracking, you can click and see the insider trading disclosures. All right. So this is there available for everyone. So what I suggest is look at the data, and there will not be 1,000 companies where insider trading happens. It happens in 100, 200 companies at a point of time. And in that, try to filter out. So because it is trying to put it के context में डालना है कि company ने last कुछ quarters में क्या किया है, right? You don't want to say कि आज 0.1% of equity लिया तो we will go and buy. The data is available freely. You need to put your filters and then start tracking them.
And are there any other red flags that one should look out for? Even though if the company is buying or the promoters are buying from the open markets, but apart from that, what else can we look out for red flags?
So one of the major red flags, as I said, is every day they end up buying few days 25,000 shares only, 50,000 shares only. Right? In terms of value, it could be small. It would just be signaling. Right? So the biggest red flag in these companies is when it is buying only for just signaling that the promoters are buying. Right? We need desperation a lot more, where they have increased percentage of equity. So you don't want to be buying just because there is signaling. Right? You'll see a negative news in a pharma company, then the promoters buy from the open market. Right? That is just signaling. Right? You want to be seeing companies buy when there is no news. Right? So a promoter buying on bad news is not something which we like. So that is a red flag. Okay? Because this is to right now to give some support to the stock. Then you can have your fundamental screeners in terms of how bad the debt condition is, etc., etc. Right? If the company is in superbly high in debt, the promoter should be actually funding the debt of the company rather than buying shares of the company from the market. Right? So overall, the view is very simple. There at times there could be bad companies also which come into the list, and that is the reason we started using a technical filter, so that we buy it only when the market has also started liking the company. See, the promoters are liking the company. They are being able to buy the stock at say 100 rupees for 2 years. Right? The stock goes to 120, implies the market also likes. So the market is also stamping the approval on the stock. So the second filter has become more important in the last 10 years. So initially, we used to buy 10 years back, I would just buy when the companies had started doing. Right. So the second frontier has become more important, which is technical, which reduces some bit of red flags. And on the way down, you're out also.
So I'd just like to add to this case, there's one filter which even I look at. So I had a video on this particular strategy, wherein so what I would look at is minimum the shareholder, the promoters of the company should have 50% holding in the company, and there shouldn't be any pledge. So if both the parameters are meeting and then they are increasing their stake every quarter or one particular quarter, then that's the signal that I would look at, or then that's my signal to look into the company in detail.
Yeah, that's a good filter of pledging, because in a few cases that could be a red flag.
Yeah, so जैसे आपने बताया कि debt है तो फिर वो debt को service करो rather than going and buying your own stock. So similarly, a lot of companies have pledge and then they are also buying from the open market. तो वो सब क्यों करना है? जो pledge है वो हटाओ ना. Yeah, I think so. It was a wonderful session. So thanks a lot, Muresh, for sharing your insights on this particular strategy. I personally also look into this strategy a lot, and many a times we find a lot of good stocks, especially in the mid cap and small cap space, with this strategy. So thanks a lot for sharing your strategy and insights with our viewers.
Thank you so much. So I'll just end off with saying this is one part of the strategy which you can do, and it gives you a lot of companies to look at. So even whether you're a fundamental guy or a technical guy, this can be used by everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just a starting point, so it is not an end in itself. तो यहाँ से आप शुरू करके बहुत सारी अच्छी कंपनीज आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हैं. So thanks a lot, Nuresh, for sharing your insights with us. Thank you. तो ये थे नूरेश मेरानी जी. इनके साथ हुए इस कॉन्वर्सेशन में हमने इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग के बारे में बात की. तो सबसे पहले हमने देखा व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग, प्रमोटर्स इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग क्यों करते हैं, प्रमोटर की इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग का इंफॉर्मेशन आपको बीएसई की साइट पे कहाँ मिलेगा ये हमने देखा, और ढेर सारे एग्जांपल्स भी देखे जहां पे इनसाइडर ट्रेडिंग वाज द फर्स्ट सिग्नल आफ्टर व्हिच द स्टॉक हैड सीन अ ह्यूमंगस रैली. तो आई एम श्योर कि ये पूरा ही जो कॉन्वर्सेशन है ये आपको बहुत ही ज्यादा पसंद आया होगा. ऐसे ही इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्वर्सेशंस आगे भी देखने के लिए हमारी चैनल को जरूर सब्सक्राइब कीजिए. थैंक यू.
अब यहाँ पे मैंने निफ्टी का देखिए एक चार्ट प्लॉट किया 25 ब्रिक्स का, मतलब 25 पॉइंट का एक ब्रिक है ये, है ना. तो जब जब निफ्टी ऊपर जाते जा रहा है 25-25 पॉइंट से ये मूव होते जा रहा है, और जैसे 2 पॉइंट्स के नीचे, मतलब अब 25 पॉइंट ये 25 पॉइंट ये, मतलब 50 पॉइंट से जब रिवर्सल आ जाएगा तो ये बेरिश ब्रिक बन जाएगा. अब ये बेरिश ब्रिक का सीरीज स्टार्ट है.